Okay, thank you all for coming. Today we have a panel of wonderful women here from different departments in the field of criminal justice, talking about their experience in the field. Could I please first ask that you all each introduce yourself and then just kind of give us a description of your education and career background?
I'll start. My name is Paula Armentrout. I went to the University of Missouri Columbia and got a degree in social work. I moved up here to Wisconsin in 1991, and I started with the Department of Corrections in 1993. I started out as a probation agent up in the Wausau area. I came down here in 2001 where I began a job as a field supervisor in probation and parole. And in 2008, I became a registry specialist for the state of Wisconsin sex offender registry. That's what I'm doing right now. So.
Thank you.
I am Mary McQuillan, and I work for the Grant County Sheriff's Department as a patrol deputy. I have a degree in police science and a degree in criminal justice, and I have spent my entire career here in Grant County. I started out as an undercover drug officer for the Iowa Grant Drug Task Force, and about a year and a half later I came out on the road and worked patrol.
Thank you.
Right, and I'm Dorinda Freimiller. I grew up in Fenimore and ended up going to UW-Madison. I pursued a degree in women's studies and a certificate in criminal justice. After graduation, I was hired by the Wisconsin Department of Justice Division of Criminal Investigation as a special agent. That's my first job, my only job. I've been there 21 years.
Thank you. If you could each answer what prompted you to get into this field.
Okay. I went into social work thinking I wanted to help people. My goal was first to get into social work in a nursing home, and those are few and far between. So then I decided, well, maybe I want to be a law enforcement officer. Decided I didn't want to work nights, weekends, and holidays, so I took the test and became a probation and parole agent. We wear many hats as a probation and parole agent, social worker, law enforcement. We do several different things in that field, and that really appealed to me. That's why I became an agent.
Great.
I wanted a job where I did not do the same thing every day. I wanted something different, where I wasn't at a desk, and I am at a desk now doing paperwork a lot, but I enjoy what I do because I like the variety of what I get to see and what I get to do in a day. Pretty simple.
For me, it wasn't my career plan at all. It was kind of happenstance. Since I was very young, whenever anyone would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up, I always said I wanted to be a lawyer. And I don't know why, but as a kid, that somehow popped into my mind as what would be right for me as a career. And then when reality set in, when I went to college and started doing things, I did an internship with the public defender's office, I volunteered at the district attorney's office and got exposure to what the day-to-day reality was for an attorney. I realized I had a large misconception about what they did, and just like mountains of paperwork in and out of the courtroom. I don't know what I was thinking that it would be about, but more interaction with people and out and about and things like that. And so when I realized that I didn't want to be an attorney and I was graduating from college, I kind of panicked and had no plan. So I knew, obviously I was involved in criminal justice, wanted to be in criminal justice, but I didn't know what aspect of that would be a good fit for me. Literally, I would leaf through job applications and postings for all different agencies, and there was a posting for special agent with the Wisconsin Department of Justice. I had no idea whatsoever what that entailed, but I thought I met the qualifications, so I applied and I was hired, and it's turned out to be a really good fit. Otherwise I wouldn't have stayed there as long as I have, but again, I like it because it is something different every day. I'm constantly learning, a lot of interaction with people. I have that helping people quality to my job, and I like that. But I also have a really strong belief in right and wrong, and I think that's what attracted me to criminal justice, and that's what kind of has made me stick with that, is kind of pursuing justice for everybody.
Thank you.
Yep.
What do you each see as the advantages to being a female in this field?
I personally believe we can set an example for other women. Strong does not necessarily mean bitchy, for lack of a better word. I mean, strong women are seen as we're stereotyped as strong women being cold, witchy, unemotional, or sometimes too emotional. So I think we have a chance to set an example to the public that, you can be strong, confident, and still be professional, still be respectable, respected. And that's one of the advantages being female in this field. You can set a great example for other women.
Thank you.
I agree with her very much. People really get the wrong idea about female officers. A lot of time are females in this type of field. The one thing that I have found that benefits me a lot is that I don't have that male ego. And when I worked the night shift, going to bar fights, a guy would take his shirt off and the male officer would come and they'd pose and I'd just go up and ask, why do you have your shirt off? I didn't understand that, and it would de-escalate things a lot because I was different than them. So sometimes being different or not having the same ideas and perception is a huge benefit. I also love children and have been able to do a lot of work with children and help children through some very, very hard times in their lives. And that has been something that I didn't expect in this field, that I just kind of stumbled into. But that's probably one of the greatest blessings that have come to me in this line of work, is that I've been able to relate to children and help them throughout their life. And I do think that helps with women and or just being a woman, that people are a little bit more comfortable with me about things. That's probably it.
I think those are great answers. For me, I knew this question was coming, and I thought about it a lot, and I struggled with it a little bit, because when I think of different, character traits or things, I see them in men and women, and I see, what are the strengths that both people can kind of bring to the job. I really especially agree, though, with you need to be assertive, not passive, but not too aggressive, and I think that is a fine line that women struggle with. But if you bring passivity to the job, you will not be successful. There is just no room for that. You have to be assertive, but be a good decision maker, and I think women can do that, and they can multitask. Of course, so can men, but sometimes we're a little more used to multitasking, I think, and juggling a lot of different things, and organizational skills seem to maybe come a little more naturally. For me, too, one thing I have noticed, because I get to work with people in law enforcement all across the state. Part of our job at DCI is we don't do a lot of things by ourselves. We work with local investigative agencies and federal agencies, so I get to experience a lot of different work methods. But writing skills are one of the most important things, and I see sometimes that women pay a little more attention to that and bring that to the table already when they're hired. So that's definitely an advantage if you have strong writing skills.
Great.
And over the 20 years I've been in the department, I think it's changed a lot. Just 20 years ago is not common to see so many women in law enforcement, and now it's just accepted. It's just, I don't think it's a big deal anymore. That's the change I've seen over the past couple decades.
Great. Thank you. So on the flip side of that, and you mentioned a few of these, what are the challenges of being female in your field?
Sometimes we're still not taken seriously. And not so much with coworkers, law enforcement, Most of the time with the public, you know, they're a little shocked to see a woman working in the field yet. For me, you know, I work with people on supervision, probation and parole, on the sex offender registry. Feel a little harassment, you know, you're tested, I think, a little more than a man would be. You know, they push the envelope just a little farther. But you'll learn to deal with that, take it in stride, and, you know, act professional, be professional, and not hold it against them. So, so that's the challenges for me.
For me, one thing that shocked me incredibly when I started in this line of work is to find uniforms for women. Oh my gosh. You know, I started working on the road in 2000, and to find uniforms that came in women's uniforms was like pulling teeth. And that has been one of the biggest struggles in my career, and it drives me bananas because, you know, so many women must have the same issue. And it continues to be a struggle, and it's finally getting better because I've complained enough within the sheriff's department that we're using different uniform companies that have actual women's uniforms. But I was shocked by that. You know, in this generation, you would think they would be readily available for women, and equipment and different. You know, just like my vest. When I went from a men's vest to a female vest, it took about 10 pounds away from my gear, and I could move. You know? So that was I was very surprised by that when I went into this field. It's just the availability of that. Like she said, there's a little bit of harassment with the public, but on the flip side of that too, people from the public feel more comfortable coming up and telling me things too. You know, they're more comfortable telling me that I'm cute, but they're also more comfortable telling me that, you know, so and so is stealing stuff. So it kind of works both ways. When I started at the sheriff's department, I was the only female there, and the female employees there, female deputies there before me had kind of left on their terms, all of them. So they were kind of skeptical of me. They were like, oh, how is she going to work out? And so initially it was kind of, you know, they stuck their toe in the water and were kind of afraid of me. And now they're afraid of me because of my personality. So, but with the sheriff's department too, it still is a little old school. It's they still have a ways to go on things, but we're working on it. The female issues, but Rome wasn't built in a day, so.
Yeah, similar, you know, experiences too. And one thing, I think that maybe people have a perception that might be a problem is things like strength. You know, how is a woman gonna defend herself in a bar fight, or, you know, take down a defendant who's 100 pounds heavier than her? And it really isn't a problem. I think that people just have that in their mind. I have a coworker who's maybe 100 pounds, not quite 5 feet tall. She's also a fitness instructor. I would never mess with her. You know, I think maybe women overcompensate a little bit, but go the extra mile to be extremely prepared with their defense and arrest techniques and weapon skills. But you learn. There are ways to make it all work. I've never seen it be a problem for anyone. And one thing that I think, just talking about how in general, business atmospheres need to kind of catch up with still working with women, and especially in law enforcement and things like if you decide to have a family. When I became pregnant, I had a couple kids. My agency had no idea what to do with me, and you know, they just hadn't experienced that a lot with women. I think I was maybe the 3rd female agent to have a child, and so just understanding what my capabilities still were, I could still function and think and get the job done, but what accommodations needed to be made. Those things we're just kind of still working through, and I think agencies are still kind of working through that. But again, I think if everyone's open to educating one another and listening, like you were saying, talking about getting a different uniform company, and that helps. So as long as everybody's kind of willing to give a little bit, I think you can overcome all of those problems.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let me open it up to anybody in here if you have any specific questions you want answered.
I do have a question. As the career placement coordinator, first I want to thank you. I'm Mindy. I didn't get to meet Dorinda and Paula. Thank you for coming. But what I do here, I work with students on the placement end. So once, and I can help them on the beginning end too of finding a career that's a right fit for them. But let's say I have a criminal justice student who already is in the program, they're going to be completing or already have. I help them prepare for and find a job. So my question is what advice do you have for, and it could be anyone in criminal justice, but also specifically for women, to get that job right out of school, because it is very competitive. I know, Dorinda, you had said this is the only job that you've had in the field that it worked out well for you, and you were able to get that right away, but that doesn't seem to be the case always for our students. So I sometimes struggle of helping them think of ways that they can build their resume, set themselves aside. So any advice that you have, I would appreciate. For all three of you, yeah.
Okay.
I think one of the things the Department of Corrections looks at is internships. That's very important to get some kind of field experience, paid or unpaid. And I don't know if they do that here at the Tech, but become familiar with, Department of Corrections, Sheriff's Department, become familiar, get to know people, make connections. That would be my advice, and, educate yourself about what we do. And again, get to know people.
For us, the Sheriff's Department also has an internship program, but it is kind of competitive. One thing that helps interns or people get the internships is to do ride-alongs. People can do ride-alongs with us at any time. They just need to contact a deputy. We are online now. We have a Facebook page and a website where they can get our email addresses. Some officers don't like having job shadows, but I, for one, love having job shadows because it just kind of breaks up the day or the monotony of my job sometimes. So they're always welcome to contact me for a job shadow. And they can see the jail and they can see what they would kind of get into with an internship. Another thing is we are looking for people in our jail. We're desperate for part-time help. So when you do a ride-along, come and look. I'll give you a walk through the jail, and you can kind of see what goes on back there and consider whether or not you'd be willing to work back there part-time. It's a good opportunity to get your foot in the door and to really shine and to come into an agency and shine, because all the sheriffs talk together, all the jail administrators talk, and it's kind of a closed network. And so if you come in and part-time and you do a great job, you're really gonna the word's really gonna get out there.
Yeah, that's all. Both gave really great advice. I'd echo that. I sit on our interview panels every year. We have a new recruitment that goes through, and I sit on the first kind of round interviews, which we're having next week. And one of the things that absolutely we look for is if you've had an internship, that's crucial for us, that you have built on some skills and really can sit down with knowledge about the position you're applying for. One of the things that will get you kind of checked off immediately is when, we truly do have people who come and sit down and have no idea what the job is that they're applying for, what we do. And especially with the internet today, there's no excuse for not knowing, just doing your basic research for a job position and calling. There's always contact information available, again, on the internet, but call, ask around, check with school resources and see if they have contact information. I can't think of any agent who would ever deny some time to at least sit down and talk with someone. We don't offer like ride-alongs or job shadowing per se, but we do have an internship program, and we offer many throughout the summer, throughout the state. And highly recommend that, because then you're also going to get an idea if that position is what it is that you thought it would be, and if it's what you're looking for. So definitely that networking. And the other thing is, I don't want to I don't know how to phrase this exactly, but apply for what's appropriate for your skill set at that time too. I mean, don't, if you are maybe just graduating, you know, you're not gonna apply for a supervisory position with a department. You wanna start at maybe a part-time job if that's available, but know what your skill set is and look for something that matches that. You can work your way up if that's your choice later on, but just do the research, really, I think is the bottom line.
Another thing I want to mention too, I sat on the interview panel for our internships, and they had to fill out a questionnaire and application for that. The misspellings, the bad grammar, it was immediately, you know, most of us would put that to the side immediately. Pay attention to your application, fill it out completely, because you know, it really makes a difference when we're judging you on a piece of paper. You have, you know, a 10-minute interview where you can come in and we can talk to you. You know, we might remember your face, but we're gonna see that piece of paper with all the punctuation errors or all the grammar errors or incompleteness on there, and that's really makes a difference. That application is, you need to make it shine, and I've really seen that lacking in some of the people who are applying for internships. That's one thing I would really highly recommend is, you know, make yourself shine on there.
Wonderful. To follow up on that, for the internship programs, and I imagine we have a partnership already established through our criminal justice folks, but for me to know how can I help our students get involved with those internship programs? What information is it available on your website? Do I contact you personally? If they're interested, what avenues should I take?
Well, with the state, it's a little different. The state, just the hiring process is totally different from from the county system. In the hiring process in the state, it's all about test taking. It's about passing that test. Once you pass the test, you get an interview. And this process can take a long time. I took a test back in '92 and I was hired in '93. So hopefully they've shortened that up a little bit. But with the state, you gotta be patient. Again, but it comes down to internships and experience. And as far as doing internships in this area, basically what you do is call local probation and parole agents or offices. And I don't know how they do it in the prison. You just call the prison?
Institutions.
Yeah, call the institution locally at the one you want to work with, and they set it up. So fortunately, we have the autonomy from Madison and central office to be able to do that on our own. And also with the job shadows, you know, just call somebody, and if I can't do it, I'll set you up with somebody who can.
Sergeant Brian Bierman is in charge of our internship program, so he would be the one to contact. But anybody at the sheriff's department would be able to direct you to them. So they can just call our non-emergency line, which is online, and our dispatch center will get you to the person you need to talk to.
Wonderful.
And with DCI, we have a pretty formal process, and it's changing just a little bit, but if you go to our website, it'll have all the information. Generally, we accept applications in the fall. It is a somewhat formal process where you submit an application, you do come in for an interview, and then we assign interns to our various field offices throughout the state, usually for a summer internship. On occasion, we can accommodate spring or fall semester internships, but our most formal program, where we have you know, a week's worth of training and then you're assigned out in the field. I mean, it's a structured program, but that's usually in the summer. So we've already, at this point, this year, it's too late for the summer program, but be on the lookout for fall, turning in applications and applying for next year if somebody's interested.
Wonderful, thank you.
And watch websites, you know, watch the state website, watch, you know, county websites. You have to check those quite often, because they can change on a daily basis. So it's real important to check those quite often. I know I do once a week just to see what else is out there. So that's real important to do.
Thank you. Any other questions? I have another one if no one else does. Don't worry, I don't have like a page long of them. what, I know you talked about the disadvantages, but can you give an example of one of the most difficult things you've encountered? Not necessarily that would have to relate to being a female in your industry, but just a very difficult situation and how you handle that. So perhaps if we have any prospective students who are concerned, maybe they'll get examples of things that have happened and how you handled it and overcome that challenge or that barrier. I know you're probably like, let me think.
Oh, no, there's quite a few.
Well, in that case.
I think Mary said it earlier, men seem to like to get naked for some reason. And I think it's, you know.
Did I say that?
You know, it's amazing as agents. You know, you go do these home visits, you do residence checks, and for some reason men seem to have their clothes off sometimes, you know, and obviously they're testing you. They're trying to see how far they can push. They're trying to get a reaction. I wouldn't say it happens often, but a little too much, you know. And so you got to have a sense of humor, you know, and you continue to be professional no matter how much you want to say and do. You just have to still be professional. And you know, I guess it happens quite a bit now that I think about it, but and I don't really know why. But you got to maintain that and not be looking, and you know, so.
One thing that I did offer her is, and I kind of talked about, is since Southwest Tech has started this program, I've had a lot of parents come and talk to me, hey, my daughter wants to get into this program. And my family was very concerned when I went into law enforcement. They were worried about my size, and they were worried about me being too much of a ding-dong, or, you know, not focused enough, or to make it in this career field. And so I see a lot of parents come up and say, hey, Mary, you know, my daughter wants to be in this field. I don't know if she has these, you know, what qualities, and we kind of talk about it. So that's one thing I would stress to you guys. If you ever get parents concerned about it, please, I live right here in town. They're welcome to contact me, and I can talk to them about, you know, the different things that have occurred in this field. The things that I kind of, you know, I have been hurt a couple times. I had a concussion earlier in the year, and it kind of bothered me because it was the female deputy, Mary, was injured in this incident, and it wasn't like that. What I was never really given an opportunity, probably because I was injured, to explain what happened, but I was kind of blocking this person so they wouldn't hit their mom. And they made it sound like I was beat up, and that wasn't really the case. And so I think that I think that was kind of a little media bias and a kind of some bias within the sheriff's department. And I think if it would have been a male officer, it would have been explained a little bit better. And so that's kind of irritating to me. So I didn't really do anything to address that because that's just the way it is. But I think that that's how there's misconceptions out there that parents worry about their daughters a little bit more. It's because it was, oh, this, you know, female officer was beat up, when that really wasn't the case. Anybody that was there that day would have been injured, and the other officer that was there with me was injured. And it wasn't put out there that, number one, we did our job very well that day. Number two, we were able to protect his mom from being further injured by this person. And number three, we took that person into custody without having to shoot him. So we had a very successful day that day. And I think the fact that it was a female was irrelevant, even though it was kind of made out to be more than what it is. So, if that answers your questions.
And thank you for offering to provide.
Yes, and please keep that in mind, because I'm happy to speak with a local resource. So.
Okay.
For me, I would say something that people might maybe worry about, I don't know, is you find yourself having really strange conversations in really weird situations you never would have in your normal life. And so I haven't really explained it, but with DCI we have focus areas. I don't investigate a lot of different things. I specialize in certain areas. And for me it's government officials. I investigate public officials, public corruption. However, having said that, we do assist one another with other operations. So I have worked on and have led and assisted on homicide investigations, and then we have a lot of people doing internet crimes against children investigations. And there we are running into a lot of sex offenders. And when you're interviewing people and asking really intimate questions, again, that you probably wouldn't ask most people in your life, you kind of think, you know you need to do that, but you might hesitate and wonder, how am I going to ask this? But you just do. And I think that's the thing where you just go forward with your job, and sometimes you just kind of remove yourself a little bit mentally and just focus on the task at hand. And later, I've reflected on, I can't believe, I had that conversation or I said those things. But you do, and it's fine. And, you just get through it. But it's just things, I think, until you've had to be in that situation or try it, you don't know that you're capable of doing that, but everybody is.
And I think working with the population I work with, you do have to ask a lot of personal questions. You have to have a lot of details about the crime itself. And you have to realize that these people are still human beings that you're speaking with, that you're supervising. They still have their issues, and it's sometimes very frustrating about what they did, and you gotta keep that out of the back of your mind, or in the back of your mind. Don't forget it, but they're still human beings and they still deserve some respect. So that was one of the hardest things for me to get used to is, you'd be sitting across the desk from a monster who just killed a child after raping them, and you still have to treat them with respect. And that's one of the important things to get through this job is, separate, your emotions from the job at hand. And it can be tough sometimes, but I think that's for anybody, whether male or female. You still have a job to do.
Thank you.
Do you want to text more questions in quick, Mindy?
Yeah, you can text questions too to the number on the board if you.
I'm not afraid to ask everyone.
I guess I wanted to know too, if when you started your job, were you paired up with a mentor? I know here at the college, any new employee gets a mentor, so I was just curious if, in your field, if you were paired up with a mentor, and if so, if it was another female that could, that you could talk to about situations.
I started in '93, June of '93. I didn't get trained until February of '94. I had no mentor. I worked in a very small office with one other man, and that's it. So no, I was kind of thrown in, sink or swim, and it worked out. I think that was the best way for me to learn. I think it's changed quite a bit since then, and that's a good thing to do. So, if somebody becomes probation and parole agent, they do get assigned a mentor, they do get training right away. And I think it's going to be different for everybody. Like I said, I worked better just learning on my own, making my own mistakes. I didn't get fired or sued, so it worked out. So.
When I came out on the road, we were field trained, and so I had, I think it was 8 weeks of training at that time where I was with different deputies. That was kind of uncomfortable to a certain degree because they were all very skeptical of having me with them. And after every time something would happen, it would be a big kind of gossip fest of what Mary did today, which was kind of funny. But law enforcement, it wasn't just me. Law enforcement is a career where they eat their young, and it's unfortunate, but law enforcement officers are very notoriously hard on their new people. And that was no different with me, and it's no different with other officers. It's just, for some reason, it's hard to get in with that group. I have tried very hard at the sheriff's department after being in that situation to not be like that. And I have had some friends who I went to college with where they worked with other women in law enforcement, and it was even harder to become friends with female law enforcement officers, because, you know, they were the girls there, and this new girl, they didn't want her to come in. So the dynamics were really hard in those larger agencies. So with that experience early in my career, it was very good for me. And so now I'm not, you know, I make it a point when we have a new employee, I introduce myself. If we have a new, we just recently hired Brittany Esser, and I make it a point, you know, is there anything I can do to help you? How are things going? Or with the new jail staff, or with anybody that's starting, just because it was so very hard. You know, there was, it was unlike a workplace I had ever been in. You know, they didn't even show me where the bathrooms were when I field trained. And so it was very, very strange place to work. And so, you know, I can't control what happens in that workplace, but I can certainly control, you know, myself and how I treat new employees. And that's getting better all the time. You know, it's getting better all the time with new administration and new employees and stuff, so. Interesting, yeah.
For me, no mentor, and, but we do, I mean, in law enforcement, you have training agents, or training officers, or whatever, you know, but that's different, and I think that it's interesting as we're kind of talking through this that I'm really thinking more about that difference, because your training person gives you your basic day-to-day duties and job skills that you need, but a mentor is more about how are you doing, checking in, giving you some maybe life advice, and we don't have that. I think that's something that we need to focus more on. I went through a time period too where I was just focused on my job and getting it done and being great and proving myself as a female. And now, during that time, I wasn't reaching out to other females or males that were new to the department. You know, I was just doing my thing. I've come almost, I guess full circle now that I have some more time to reflect on that, and I'm a lot more interactive with people that are new. Or we've just had a recent transfer from a different office who's going to be my partner, and working with her, just taking a lot more time to tend to their well-being, as in addition to just what the job entails, but making sure that they're going to be successful as a person in the job and stay with it. So, yeah, something we need to focus on more, I think.
Can I make a suggestion about going back to how do you get into the field, and what you need to do? Can you advise students to watch what they put on their Facebook and social media?
Yeah, social media.
I love to hear that reiterated.
Yeah, people have been stopped in the process because of the social websites. So, and they can be super qualified, but when you look at the websites that pictures are posted out there, it makes a huge difference. Huge difference.
I have a question for Mary.
Yes.
So Mary, smaller place that you work at, your agency, do you find it more difficult in a smaller area compared to, say, like you work for the state and you were in that setting where there's hundreds of people and a handful of women compared to you alone with a few guys? Do you think that's harder or not?
I don't know, because I had Sherry come in and Karen Walls was working there, and they both chose to leave, and they, became very good friends of mine. But part of the reason that they became very good friends of mine is because I wanted them to succeed. I wanted them to do good, and they have. They've done very well. I can only say what my other friends said. They said that when they went into a bigger place, it was very, very difficult, because there were younger female officers, and then she was a younger female officer, and they were kind of competing over attention, male attention. And so they had a very hard time with that. And now she's one of the old ladies, and I said, hopefully you are not acting like that. So in a way, I think it probably was a little bit easier for me, just being me, because I didn't have anybody to discourage me, or, I was just kind of ignored. You know, it was the guys and Mary, or it was Mary and the dogs. They put me, you know, now that we have Mary and the dogs, we're a more diverse department, is one of the quotes that was in the newspaper. And I'm like, wait a minute, you know? So, you know, and that's gotten better, it really has, but I think as far as getting along with people, that did make kind of a difference, that it was just me, so.
Okay.
Yeah, and now the dogs are kind of on their own, and it's me, you know, Brittany and I are together in our group, so.
That's where that sense of humor comes into play.
Yeah.
The dogs make the news more than you do.
Yeah, the dogs do, they're more popular. The
Yeah.
kids like the dogs better than me too, so.
I'm wondering how supported you felt by your family when you went into the field that you're in, and kind of what their reaction was.
My parents have no idea what I do, and that's okay. I mean, they know I work for the state Department of
Uh-huh.
Corrections, but they have no idea. But they live 400 miles away, so,
Oh.
and that's okay. They're okay with that. But my husband is very supportive.
My family was not supportive at all. They did not want me in this field. You know, you know, I had to fight with them to be in this career field, and they're 100% supportive now. They're very supportive, but they did not think I would make it through college, let alone still be in this career 14 years later. You know, they were not at all. I did have an aunt who was very supportive, so that helped a lot.
My family was supportive, still are.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot, they didn't really know exactly what I was doing and might not have been quite as supportive if they knew kind of the day-to-day things
Yeah.
that I was dealing with. But overall, no, they've been great and they've been proud, and that makes me feel really good.
I do have another question then, off of that, what you're talking about, as far as a support group, you know, like you said, you had no support and you guys both do. Working in corrections for myself too, I mean, my family is 100% supportive, but I couldn't explain to them in detail what I see or what's been told to me throughout the day. I mean, I just couldn't. I could try to, but unless they're there, it's hard to explain it. You know, and so I have a lot of friends I work with that I've become very close with, guys and girls, you know, and throughout the day you talk about these things, you know, and you kind of get it out before you leave, you know. I mean, do you actually have that? I mean,
Do I?
an outlet, any of you? I mean, do you have an outlet that you're able to, you know, like a half hour drive home, or if you're riding with coworker, like, you know, when you get home, you're like, it's all better, and I mean, do you have an?
Oh, I do very much now. You know, I do have a lot of friends that are supportive now. I have a lot of friends within the sheriff's department. But it was something that took time to develop those relationships. And I have some very good friends who work in the jail. I have a very good friend who is a campus police officer that we talk about things a lot. So yeah, I have a really good support network now, not at all within my family though. I have very little contact with my family about anything related to law enforcement. Just, you know, they're very supportive of me, but the whole, like, for them to understand any of it is very difficult.
Do you both have support?
Oh, yeah. And working in an office setting is a little easier. Yeah, you know, you gotta be careful because what you say in the office, but
Right.
for the most part, you know, if you can laugh about this with your coworkers, then you gotta do it. And that's why they make email.
Yeah.
Until they catch you.
Yeah, I'd say the same, you know, and that is crucial. I mean, you have to have that because you have to be able to talk about it because it's just crazy, the stuff that you experience
Yeah.
and that you see and
Yeah.
just deal with. And yeah, you need to be able to vent and laugh and kind of get that off your chest. So it's really important.
Any other questions? Well, we thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. It was very insightful. I think everybody here can say that. And good luck to you. We hope you can come back another time and have more people here. But thank you very, very much.
Yep, thank you.
We should have had you two up here also.
Yeah.